My name is Carina and welcome to the Carina Chronicles. I am very late with this April wrap-up, but I've read 9 books in April, which is my personal record, the same as my personal record. I didn't beat it, but still, 9 books, and I didn't want to miss the opportunity to show them to you, even though I'm quite late. So let's just do that. So I started the month off not so great. I started with some thrillers, which is weird. I didn't really read thrillers before this year, and now I read 2 in the beginning of April already. But the first one was the well-known, very much causing some rumors, Argylle by Elly Conway. Elly Conway is a pseudonym for Terry Hayes and Tammy Cohen. And before that was known, people thought it was Taylor Swift, which is interesting. So I couldn't go around all the rumors. I wanted to know what this was about. Also, there was immediately a movie coming out of it, and it wasn't exactly like a movie adaptation of the book, but just the concept. I don't know. I just needed to know. And that's why I read it. And I call it now. This is the most overhyped book of the year. There's nothing really special about this book. Not even like Terry Hayes is one of the most famous thriller detective, now more thriller authors in our bookshop. So I don't want to make it too big, but like he's very popular and people all over the Netherlands love him very much. So I was interested to see a detective / James Bond like book by him. It might just not be my taste, but I thought this was very mediocre. I gave it 2 stars. I predicted what would happen from page 1. And I promised myself, because in the end I was kind of interested to know how it would end. Like it picked up, it started very slow until like 2/3 and then it kept going. And I was interested to know the end. So I was like, I will give it 3 stars if the ending is surprising, because I want to know the end. So that is a good sign, you know. But it will get only 2 stars if it was what I predicted in the beginning. And that was the case. So 2 stars only. I might watch the movie still, because I heard other reviews about that. And it's not like 1-to-1 with the book. So I might like that one. And then I read another thriller that I haven't got anymore because I borrowed it from someone, but it was Fear the Silence by Robert Bryndza. And I have been dying to read something by him for a very long time, because he's such a popular thriller author, but he mostly writes series and they are intimidating. And this was his first standalone, so I was happy that I could try his writing style with just a standalone. I'm not impressed. Again, this might not be my genre, but he just wrote a main female character that was so unbelievable, and it made my blood boil. Because I was like, women don't do like this, and women don't act like this, and women definitely don't think like this. For example, she was just harassed by men that she didn't know, and she was still in this vulnerable position, and this other man was still there. And then another man, very strong, with a weapon in his hand, comes, and she's like, oh, finally a guy, now I feel safe. Weirdest thing. Like, I don't know if you heard the whole TikTok thing about would you rather meet a bear or a man out alone in the woods. And everyone says the bear because it's more predictable and you have a chance it might actually go away. Well, the author of this book didn't really get that. Like, every time when a man was in her personal space, even though she was harassed and almost raped and all these kind of things, she was like, oh, there's a man now. Now I feel safe. Yeah. Couldn't get over it. So 2 stars only. again. So it wasn't a great start of the month, but after that, I actually picked up Britt-Marie Was Here by Fredrik Backman. And this was one of the favorite books of my mother of all time. And I get why. I really think she can a little bit connect with this character, but also because Fredrik Backman's style is just so brilliantly written. Just his style is just perfect. I only read 2 books by him now and watched 3 movies of him. And I can say this is one of my favorite authors of all time. I've never read a 5-star read by him yet, but everything is just 4 stars all the way. This one as well. And very close to 5 stars, but this one was a little less for me than Anxious People, and Anxious People was also a very high 4 stars, so I definitely couldn't give this 5 stars. This is about a woman who is divorced from her man, and well, now ex-man. And her ex-man kind of forced her, although she thought she wasn't doing it willingly, to stay at home and just be there and don't really develop herself. So now that she is single again, she gets to discover what she actually likes and what she wants to do in life. But she doesn't have a job or anything, so she gets sent to this village where they need a football coach. And she doesn't like football, but well, it's a job. So she meets all these children, and it's really cute. It's really cute. You should read it. If you want to watch the movie, don't. The adaptation of Anxious People is brilliant. The adaptation of A Man Called Otto, in the book is called A Man Called Uwe. But the adaptation of A Man Called Otto, I heard it wasn't the best, but I watched it and I loved the movie. This movie makes no sense. Not at all. Worst adaptation I've ever seen. There's no depth in there. All the things that add something special to the story are cut out, and even the climax isn't happening in the movie. So it was really weird to watch that one, but the book is brilliant. Just read it. It's chef's kiss for sure. And then we're continuing with a book that I don't have anymore again because I borrowed it, and it was A Bright Heart by Chenli. And this was a Chinese YA fantasy, which had a lot of potential, but eventually didn't really live up to it for me. I gave it 3 stars. It is about a revenge story and also kind of resurrection. Like in the beginning of the book, the main character dies and she prays to the gods to get one more chance to do it differently this time. And then she's sent back 2 years in time with all the information still to change something about her faith. And the concept is quite interesting, except for that it feels like it's just a prop to make the story easier, but it has no consequences at all. She doesn't really act differently. Well, she does act differently, but she doesn't really think. It's just not a very bright main character. And also, well, I say she's not very bright, but she's actually too smart. She knows everything, what is very confusing, because why would she first time around know nothing and die, and then second time around can suddenly read everyone's mind? I mean, obviously she knows some people are bad because they did her dirty, but you know, it wasn't great. But it read fast and it was a fun concept, but I might read the second part because why not? But predictable, and not enough use gotten out of the interesting concept of being resurrected after death. So 3 stars, but better than the 2 stars that I had been giving throughout the month, so it's fine. Then it was time for my manga / comic / graphic novel, a comic this time, and it was Avatar: The Last Airbender Book 1 Water Volume 1, which is a screen comics, which means that the actual original TV show has been just put into comic form. So nothing changed, but I really needed the original Avatar in my life. I actually, when I was younger, I did watch Avatar: The Last Airbender, but it was on our public television, and we just watched whatever episode was on. So I never really watched it in order, and I felt like I needed the full story to really get into the depth of the story. So I wanted to read these. There are only 4 out now, and they haven't been publishing them yet lately, so I fear this might not be continued. Also because I bought the second volume when I saw there was only one in stock, and I tried to order it via my own bookstore, and they said we can get it, but there's only one in stock. And then we bought it, and literally everywhere it's now sold out, and also at the publisher's side it's not visible anymore. So I feel like they're not going to reprint it, and that's a bad sign. If they don't reprint one of the volumes, they're probably not going to continue. So I wouldn't recommend buying these, because probably it will be discontinued. But for me, it was a really nice 5 stars. I love the story. It's better even than I remembered it. It is so cute and so valuable. And I am definitely going to read the other 3 volumes and then pray that we get more. And then I finally, after such a long time, finally read Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. This is just so wholesome. I know everyone says it, but it is. It is a very wholesome fantasy. And I got this feeling of like a restaurant game. A friend of mine also said this, and I couldn't really get it out of my mind afterwards. This restaurant game where you level up all the time and you get more things to sell. It really felt like that, but then in book form, and it was great. I felt really warm and happy, and also a little bit sad when sad things happened, but it read really fast, and it was just the perfect example of a book hug. Like, you need a book to escape reality for a bit, and you need to feel warm. This is perfect. It is so easy. You won't miss anything when you are not completely there with your mind, but it is perfect. But not exactly perfect, because I gave it 4 stars. I thought too little happened, but that is also like the perk of the story. So don't mind me giving it 4 stars, just read it. Then we had something I really didn't know anything about. The Binding by Bridget Collins. Amazing. I didn't know anything about this, and I honestly think that is the best way to start. Because if you expect a fantasy, a YA fantasy, this is a YA fantasy, but it has more. And for me, the surprise, and me figuring it out myself before it actually happened, and then me being right, that is just great. That made the story so much better. I didn't love the ending, because it has almost 500 pages, and the real climax is only like 30 pages before the end. I hate when they do that. I want to know what they do after the climax as well. It doesn't have to be very long, but give me something, you know? So I didn't like that, so that's why it's 4 stars. But the way the story went was really surprising to me, and I loved it. I'm not going to say what I would describe this as, but as I just said, I would recommend you not knowing before. But if you want to know, I'm now going to say it. So it is a kind of a spoiler, but if you need a final push to read this book, this might help you. So, okay. Not listening if you don't want to know, okay? I would say this feels like a Harry Potter and Draco Malfoy fan fiction, which is apparently what I needed. And really nice. Yes, I really love it. Okay, so you can listen again. Spoilers over, and we're going to another book. 4 stars. Then I read Bunny by Mona Awad, and I annotated it. This is the most crazy book I've read in a very, very long time, maybe in forever. I cannot explain to you what I've just read, but I loved it. And we discussed it with some friends and everyone really loved it and everyone was also very confused. This is a kind of a story, well, some people call it a dark academia. We've been having a discussion about that as well because we read it for a dark academia experiment. It is not dark academia, but I wouldn't per se describe it as dark academia because it doesn't have the aesthetics of it. And that is kind of a big deal for me in dark academia. But it is dark and it has an academia setting. So you have that. Also, it's quite horror. It was nominated for the Goodreads Horror Awards. So if you don't like horror, don't read this. Because it kind of is, but it is horror and it's literature. It's for sure literature and it's dark academia and it's just pure art and it's so weird. I need to read more by Mona Awad. I'm giving it 4 out of 5 stars because there were parts that I didn't really feel like continuing. But there were also parts that I really, really loved. But there were parts that I didn't really feel like I need to read this now. And therefore it cannot be a 5-star in my opinion. And then might be the biggest surprise of the month. At the very end, on the last day of April, I read Girl Goddess Queen by Bea Fitzgerald. A very TikTok famous book, Greek retelling about Hades and Persephone, which you have to score high for me to do that. Because I really, really, really like Greek retellings. And if you're not Madeline Miller, you might not be good enough. But I actually really love this. This felt like a rom-com to me. And in the most perfect way. Like, it's so cliche. It is predictable in some way. And it's very cheesy. But it hit me at all the right spots. And I was just having the greatest time. I loved the character Styx in here. I loved how sassy Persephone and Hades were. I loved their relationship. I loved their vibes. I loved the feminist undertones that we had without it being too preachy, but it was very present and I loved that as well. I loved what Bea Fitzgerald did with this story. It was a little bit too long for me because at 2/3 of the story it's very slow burn and 2/3 of the story I was like, okay, I know it now, I get it now, please continue. So therefore it's 4 stars, but it was the biggest surprise and I did choose this as my favorite read of April. With so many surprising good books, this was actually the one that I chose as my favorite of April. I don't count the mangas for that because they're almost all 5 stars. And I don't want to have like a manga every time. I will make a different chart for those, but I don't count them for my best book of the month. This is the best normal book of the month for me. So that was actually it. I know I'm very late, but I hope you still enjoyed me talking about these books a little more. I hope you liked this video, and if you did, please leave a like. If you subscribe to my channel and click the notification bell, you will be notified whenever I post a new video. I hope you'll have a lovely day filled with books, and I'll see you all in my next video. Bye! I can't believe I read 9 books again. Also because I'm not reading that many books that I actually really like. I mean, there were a lot of 4 stars in here, but I'm waiting for those 5-star books and not the manga, comic or graphic novels because that's too easy. I choose them because I already know I love them.